and get started? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Get you in, get you out? Please by 6.
Oh, please. No more.
No, 6. 4. It's a 4-hour class. Most of you guys know. You're the one that would be sitting up by the teacher, aren't you?
Yep.
I dropped my pen, sorry.
I'm glad to know you have one because I do wear one. Most of you know who I am. I'm Jan Dickinson with the title company, Liberty Title. This is
Ashley.
Who doesn't know Ashley? You guys see me all the time, but who doesn't know Ashley?
Well, I know your name, Ashley
Boyko. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is
I know
who
your
I
name.
go ask my questions to because I don't close, remember? If I'm within $100, I'm good. You guys aren't good with that. We were asked to come in and do a class on, I guess your final class on the title company's part in international closings. And I'd like to say it's real exciting, but we sell title insurance and that's not real exciting. So I asked if I could also do it with cyber fraud and wire fraud because it's real pertinent and it goes together with what you guys do in the closings. So Bob said yes, so you guys get to do that too. I'm going to let Ashley start it off because that's who you're dealing with and she is dealing with the problems and the issues you guys have at closing, and we'll go from there.
I heard you may have recently done a FERPTA class. Anybody done one like recently in the last like month or two with like a CPA or FERPTA solutions? Anything like that? No?
I don't remember.
Who has a question about FERPTA? Because I kind of want to start with
I do have a question.
what you
because
know and don't know and need to know. Go ahead.
On one of the listing sheets on a property I was selling, we were thinking of putting an offer on it.
Mm-hmm.
It said that they were, they're out of Germany.
Okay.
It said that they were not subject to FERPTA, and I did question the agent on it. She did say that they had social security numbers. But in order to protect my buyers, you know, from having to pay any kind of penalty or whatever, if they don't collect the taxes. How do we know if an agent is telling us this?
Right. Well, the first thing is just because someone has a social security number does not mean they're not foreign. They can still be foreign. So a foreign person is a non-resident alien. So they have to meet both of those criteria. The class we recently took at FERPTA Solutions said they need to prove without a doubt that they are not foreign. So even if they say we live here, we work here, we go to school here, prove it. That's what they said. So
Okay.
always treat everyone as if they're foreign until they prove you otherwise.
Okay.
The other way they can be exempt is if it's a home, but you said it was a vacant lot, right?
No, no, no. It was
Oh,
a
was it a home?
Yes.
If it's a home, the buyers are planning on using it, either one as a primary residence or number two, if they're gonna use it 50% of the time it's occupied in the first 2 12-month periods. I know that's a little confusing, but let's say they plan on renting it out for 3 months, but the other 6 to 9 months they're gonna live in it. And it's under 300,000, no FERPTA. Does that make sense? So vacant lots, always, because nobody can live on a vacant lot, right? Yes?
How do they prove it? If they're telling you they have a social security number and they're telling you this and that, what do we ask them for to prove that they're?
Yeah, that's a good question. They can have a green card, they can have a visa, they can have a US passport, things like that. I can get back on more things, but yeah, there's.
And we do that at closing.
Yes,
I mean,
we
that's,
do
those
that.
are some of the
They
documents we
sign
do.
an affidavit that says they're not foreign. Every seller, every closing I do that's not foreign, they sign an affidavit that says, I'm not foreign, here's my social, here's my driver's license.
Even Jan Dickinson did sign that.
The withholding agent on a FERPTA is never supposed to be the title company. We will hold the funds, but on those FERPTA forms that you send to the IRS, there's never supposed to be the title company as the withholding agent. Yes? and I'm gonna pass these out. This is just quick. I didn't wanna stay on FERPTA the whole time, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. But this is a good flow chart on what to follow when you're wondering if somebody is.
Do you guys remember me showing you that letter from the IRS that says you don't ever want to get it, and it was addressed to me and my husband for $19,960? Would you guys like to know how that ended?
Yes.
The title company actually sent the money in, and last month I got another letter from the IRS that told us that we needed to pay another $10,680 penalties and interest.
The title company
Did not send the money in
Didn't
a
send the
timely
money in.
fashion. So she wanted to try to protest it, and I gave her one chance to protest it, and got another letter saying that they were going to start affecting our credit score and everything.
Oh my God.
My phone call to the title company was, I'm ready to file a claim. She sent the money into the IRS, sent me documentation the next day, or the next week. So it happens to everybody.
Well, actually, when you said a title company is never to hold the money, that's
They are
what-
hold the money, but they are never to be listed as the withholding agent on the form. The buyer is always the withholding agent. Now, we hold the money on behalf of the buyer as a courtesy, but a lot of title companies are getting out of that and having the buyer actually hold the money and spend it themselves.
How scary is that?
Yes, to hand a buyer $50,000 and say, good luck. Send it to the IRS. But we do that via FedEx. We know exactly where the money is going and when. So, yes.
But when you bought the property, didn't you sign that you were gonna live in it?
At the time, I was not. I was living in Kansas City.
Oh.
So it was not going to be her primary residence. Yep, so they had to withhold the funds.
And that was before you got into our title company work?
Well, I was in the title in Kansas City. We didn't transfer down to a year later.
They don't do a lot of FERPTA in Kansas.
Yeah.
Great.
A lot of our foreigns were illegal in Kansas City.
Oh, gotcha, makes sense.
Yeah. So I have a question for everybody. Are Florida LLCs subject to FERPTA? It's a trick question. Yes and no.
Yes.
Yes.
If one of the members is foreign, yes, FERPTA. Now, there's specific ways it's split up and how it's calculated, but just because they say I have a Florida LLC does not mean they're exempt. If they're a foreign person, they're gonna have major tax ramifications if they don't pay that tax. And the tax ramifications will fall on the buyer. So that's a scary thing to think about as well. Does anybody have questions about the form I passed out? Go ahead.
So if you have the buyer, you guys send the money, you collect that at closing.
Yes,
And you send that off to the IRS.
yes.
The buyer can object to that and say, I'm going to handle that, and take their funds and then presumably send it to the IRS.
They can, if they have a CPA, I would normally
But you
prefer
can't hold the
that.
money, if they requested that, it could blow up on the seller side. They say, no, we want our money, we're gonna do it, and
Right.
you can't hold, you have to give that money. So there is no reassurance to the seller that it's never gonna follow her.
Right, well, the seller has not a ton to worry about after that,
Okay.
because they're on the form, yes, but the buyer is responsible for sending the money. So the seller, after they apply for their ITIN and they use their CPA and all the forms are done, they're done. They've let the title company have the money, and then they have to file their tax returns, but that's it. Now, they could go through problems after that, because tax returns is not paid, but really the buyer's responsible. So yeah, the buyer said, you know, we don't trust you to hold this money, we want to do it ourselves. I would say you need a CPA to help you do that then, because that's just a liability that title companies just won't take on to let somebody take that for them. Does that make sense?
Or an attorney.
Or an attorney would be fine, right? Questions about this? Let's see. So, for a foreign seller, with Fidelity, we're owned by Fidelity, they require our foreign sellers to sign at U.S. embassies only. website, usembassy.gov, that they can make an appointment. Or I think you may have to call to make the appointment. I don't think you can do it online, but there's lists of all the U.S. embassies in all foreign countries for them to go to. Now we know it's inconvenient, we know it can be stressful for them to travel, but this is what we have to do. There's just, I mean, Ken just had one.
I didn't have that.
You didn't have
I
that.
had the wire.
You had the wire fraud, but I had a closing that was coming up that I got the contract, the agent hadn't done a foreign seller before, I think, and was only contacted via email. And once I got in contact with the seller, the story's a little fuddled in my brain, but he was refusing to apply for an ITIN, which is required, refusing to use a CPA. We don't require any specific CPA. It can be your CPA, you know, your mom's CPA, it can be the one FERPTA Solutions that we recommend, but he was refusing to do that and also refused to go to the embassy. So upon seeing this passport and zooming in on the name, actually the photocopy that was in black and white was really hard to tell that it was fraudulent. Once he sent us the color copy, that's when we knew that it was fraudulent.
Wow.
So he was not the seller. The first clue to me was that the addresses didn't match. So on the contract, there was an address for London. On LIPA.org, the tax bill was going to an address in France. When we got his passport, it was a Swiss passport. Now, apparently, this is what I learned after, that the Swiss passports are the easiest to make fraudulent. So be aware of that. Any money being sent to Vietnam, that's a huge red flag. If they say, oh, I live in Switzerland, but I want my money sent to this account in Vietnam, huge red flag. There's also a lot of notary names that are used. So if say you told somebody to go to the embassy and they didn't, and you got their documents back, or the title company, and the notary had a specific name. There's one notary that a lot of them are using.
Was that Ashley Boyko's name? Oh.
Where'd it go? It was Duncan Allen in England, just a random notary name, and Swiss passports that are bearing the issuance date of 8/21/14. There's specifically those are like fraudulent names and dates. So what's that? This is from Old Republic Title. They're another underwriter in the country. They had a lot of fraudulent activity, and they noticed that this was a common thing in like 100 of them. So yeah, there was a lot of people just going around using these same.
Just be aware, guys, that most foreign countries do not have notaries.
That's true. Yep, and a lot like Germany actually does not. Those regular state notaries in Germany do not allow U.S. documents to be notarized. You have to go to an embassy in Germany. I mean, you have to with our company, no matter what. But Germany, you won't have anything else and no other option.
What did you say that was? I go to USMC.gov.
USMC.gov. Yep, and it's $40 for the first document, and then $20 for every document thereafter. So the deed, would be number one. We have the seller's affidavit and anything after that. So really, it's not a huge amount really to travel if it's a larger country and it's harder to get there. But Annalie says it's cheaper than a plane ticket back to the U.S. So it's worth it for everybody's peace of mind to require that. Yes.
The embassy required that has to be translated in their language?
No, because it's U.S. people there, so it can be in English. Yep. Now, your foreign seller may require for them to understand the document of translation, and there's a bunch of different websites that you can submit that charge for that, but they will translate the documents into another language. Or maybe you have a friend that speaks that language that would do that for you. But sometimes the documents can be expensive, so I have had to use those websites before. So red flags for foreign sellers, make sure they are who they say they are. If they contact you only by email, the addresses don't match from the LIPA to what they're giving you, to what the passport says that they, and the passport won't always have a current address, but I would ask for passport, driver's license, or ID from their country, you know, water bill, electric bill, something that you would show even here that they're a resident of the United States, but in a different country. If they're refusing to apply for the I-10, refusing to work with a CPA, refusing to sign at the embassy, and basically any foreign seller with vacant lot, just be skeptical. That's really what I want to just make you guys aware of. Just always be skeptical.
Ask the question why. Why are they contacting you
Right.
if you normally don't work or speak that language? Why? Why?
Exactly. It's not just my luck. They're planning this on purpose to catch people and hope that it gets through. That's all I have.
That's it?
Yeah.
Go over.
That's just for me. Jan has, just wait.
Nice try. Go over why we asked for what we do at the very beginning, why we're asking for the phone numbers and.
Oh, yes. So contact information is huge. We can call foreign numbers. Our phone system allows that. So even if it's a foreign phone number, we should speak to someone and go over all of this information as soon as you get the closing, as soon as you have a buyer and a contract and you're contacting me or the title company for title work. So that's big. I like to call people, not just email. I mean, this guy that I had an agent on that was not who he said he was his name at gmail.com. And a lot of people I do work with that are foreign sellers, they have, you know, personal emails, not just their name. Like, I think that's a U.S. thing, maybe.
Well, we're going to go over that in the front
Yeah,
too.
the emails, you know, mine's a little different than just my name, but I know a lot of people have that at gmail.com, but that was his email. So he just created that out of thin air. And that was our only point of contact for him, no phone number, no nothing. So it was very, very scary. So yes, we would like to speak with the sellers on the phone. Any questions? Give it to Jan.
Oh, boy. Who knows what OFAC is? OFAC. Who wants to give it a try? I'll give you the first word. Office.
Sit here. Can I sit here? Okay.
Watch here.
That's okay. This is fine, yeah.
Foreign control. What is the purpose? Assets. Excuse me.
What is it?
Oh my. Office of Foreign Asset Control.
Oh.
What's its purpose? To counteract terrorism and implements economic sanctions against countries, entities, individuals determined by the President or Congress to be threats to the national security of the U.S. This is something that we can't talk about when it pops up, but we can talk about it now. So we're going to talk about it because it has to do with the closings. Have you ever had a closing that you know the money's there? You know it's been there for a day, 2 days, and we're not dispersing. And you go, you got the money. Why can't we get the money? Well, we're waiting. We can't tell you why we're waiting. This may be why it may not be what, but it may be why we're waiting. It prohibits any U.S. person, including organizations, from dealing in any way with property in which the named individuals, the groups, entities such as terrorists or narcotic traffickers under countries that are non-specific, which means it could be an individual, violated, attempted to violate, conspired to violate, or caused to violate U.S. sanctions against Syria or Iran. U.S. persons and entities are generally prohibited from dealing with individuals and companies on these lists whenever they are located, and all their assets must be blocked. Yes.
Why can't you tell us, I mean,
because we are prohibited from disclosing that information to any party of the contract.
Once we
Because what would happen if you had, who was the big drug pen before he died? Anyway.
Escobar?
Escobar. Wonder if you have Escobar Mendez, whoever he might be, or Smith or whatever.
Pablo Escobar.
Pablo.
Thank you. Escobar Smith.
Are you good friends?
I don't like cocaine, I just like to smell it.
And he's convicted, you got the sale on his property for $10.5 million, and assets are being traded, and I said, I cannot disperse this file right now. And he's sitting at the table, and you go, what? Well, because we're waiting to see if he's the drug lord we're looking for, because the EA's on his way over here. That could be a problem.
Yes.
We're probably all gonna get shot at that point. Nobody leaves here alive. There's a secret tunnel under the floor. But we cannot, by law, we cannot disclose to you that we are researching this person, this entity, this LLC, anything. We may come back and we may say, hey Ken, what's Escobar, who was it?
Pablo
Could you
Escobar.
tell me who's Pablo's mother's maiden name is? And you're gonna look at me and go, what are you doing? I'm just asking.
Place
I'll
of
ask.
birth.
And I give it to you.
And I'll say, cool. I come back later and I say, do you know where he lived before he left South America? Do you know if he has another house? And you go, what are you doing? We are trying to eliminate this person as the one we're actually really looking for, without telling you this may be the person we're looking for. So I just thought that would be really good information for you guys to know if your closing is ever held up, that the money's for it.
Get that late in the game before you would
Yes.
know that?
Well, we run them through, but then we have to run them through again, because wonder if the name is then put on the list because he hijacked a plane.
Okay.
Okay. We have to run them through, we run them
So,
through.
a couple of times.
Yeah.
So more than likely, this would occur before we're all sitting at a table? Or should we?
Actually, when do they run it through the final time, when we do the run today?
When I don't receive the buyer's wire is my biggest, when they say that the wire has been sent and here's the tracking number, and I give my tracking number to my accounting team, and they say, we can't tell you why it's being held, but the government has gone in and snatched it. They took the money
But
and
they don't tell us that.
They don't tell us, but they can hold it for an undisclosed amount of time. So the
Wow.
feds
We're talking
literally
months.
went in through the system, snatched that money, and won't let go of it until they know the person who sent it is who they say they are and they're not wanted. So it can be random, it can be because of a name. I had one just because his name was Jose Gonzalez. And because that's such a common name, they just snatched my wire and they held it for like 3 days.
Wow.
So we've really tried to help, give them
Yep.
as much information as possible.
But yes, they asked for his social, his date of birth, his place of birth, his mom's maiden name, and any last known addresses.
You would not normally come and ask me those questions,
Probably not.
because that would tip me off right there. I mean, just, I would know something.
Not if I didn't explain this to you now.
Oh,
But I can't tell you about it then, but I can tell you about it now. So I thought this would be good information. What happens if one of the names comes up? All money's frozen until we can determine if this is our person. We'll go on a fact-finding mission, but cannot tell you what we are doing, because it's covert. Okay? So if we ask questions, please do not get mad or frustrated. We cannot tell you that your person is being researched, and we cannot, if you think so, either let onto that person, even if you think that's what we're doing. Okay? Because this is for the safety and security of our country, and it really is serious business.
We had that with Gina, remember that? It was a few hours.
Yeah. So, that's all I got to say about OPAC, unless you guys have other questions on that.
I'm just wondering how you handle it with other people on the other side of the closing that's waiting
Do you know
for
about
funds.
tap dancing, and we try to skirt around it without answering it, and
Oh my God.
we just don't answer
Say,
the
the
phone.
bank has held the funds,
Just don't
that's
answer the phone.
basically what I say.
We close the door, shut the shades. and
Go on a cruise?
Pablo paid for that. Want to go over just a little bit, who uses attorneys in here to close? Not so much in this area, but I know attorneys do, or a lot of closings down in the Naples
I didn't
and
want to live in a.
down in that area. They use attorneys a lot down there. I would ask the question, some attorneys down there think, or in everywhere, think that, I don't want to say this, believe that they only do cash closings, that they don't have to worry about
I
cyber
think they have more
fraud.
knowledge than they do.
He said it.
Do you know how many things we correct? Attorneys?
How we closing because the attorney, like we couldn't close.
That's
Yeah, not
the,
management attorneys. But I mean, there's other things to consider, like what about the 1099 information that's out there? What about the seller's proceeds information that's out there? So there's other things. What about the buyer's money coming in? There's a lot more sensitive things out there. Do they have a plan in place if your information or your money's compromised? Do they know what to do? If they don't do it all the time, do they know what to do? Jack, have you used a lot of attorneys in the past?
On commercial deals from time to
Well,
time.
commercial might be a little bit different. Well, no, they still have the privacy issues, I would think. So I just wonder how they handle that, if you knew. They do. So I would just say be vigilant and ask questions, because you're there to do what? Protect your clients, right? You're there to look out for their best interest. So a lot of people say, why wouldn't I use an attorney instead of a title company? Isn't that better? I don't know, is it?
Of course it is. They do it day in, day out.
The title companies do, day in and day out. These attorneys don't do it all the
And
time.
you know what else?
In the state of Florida, attorneys can't be held liable if there's something wrong with the title.
The title companies don't question my commission.
Yeah.
Is there a story here?
What did
There
you
is.
say?
Would you like to share?
And I told my client, I said, well, your attorney, if he charged you over X amount of dollars, I'm gonna have to advise you, you may have the wrong attorney. And that ended that conversation. Because who's he to tell me
Yeah.
what I should make versus what he's making? And
Right.
So I prefer
Yeah.
title companies.
Well, and we do it all day long, and we have to be compliant. I'll go over a little bit more of that too. So I'm kind of working my way into cyber fraud is what I'm going to here. So giving a little leeway here. So as a realtor, what are you doing to protect your client's personal information? Know the answer, just shout it out. It's okay.
Nah, that's what we're
Okay.
doing.
Okay, that's why we're in this class here, all right.
What are you not
Do you
doing?
take copies of the driver's license?
Yes.
What do you do with it? Where do you put it? Who gets to see it? What do you do when you're done with it?
credit.
But while you're working with that client, where's it at? Is it locked? Is it secure?
Give it to Marilyn.
Well, if someone breaks in my house,
Where's my heart rate thing? Who gets to see it? That's all right. You can tell me it's all right. They know.
Me and whoever else gets in our.
There you go. Okay. So why do we need what we need, and who does it? I don't understand why I wrote that. Why do we need what we need, and who does it go to and why? Oh, that makes sense. Why do we need what we need, and who does it go to and why? Do you need all this information? And would it be better for them to give it to us, who has a secure place to hold it? Okay. So rather than you be the collector of information and then give it to us, it's so much better for us to deal directly with your clients and hold that information securely. Anything that has social, tax information, anything like that, automatically gets encrypted by our system. I found that out the other day when I sent my tax returns through. I couldn't open mine. I'm like, actually, how does this work?
you'll do that for us? Like if I just tell my clients, listen, I don't wanna have that information.
We have to have their driver's license and we have to have, what else would you collect?
Well, like you said, you have their, their ID, you know, obviously their address, their social security number, a lot of information.
Actually, what do you do in the very beginning? When we get the contract, the first thing you do is you send an information sheet out to the clients.
Yes. They put that information on their sheets.
Do you send it directly to the client or do you send it to us to fill out?
No, I send you an email asking for their contact information. And then I send, if they have an email, most of the time they do, I send them an information sheet to send back. And most of the time,
Sensitive like that you guys need, we are more than happy to have you send it to us, we scan it, and it's online.
and if they don't feel comfortable putting their socials on there, they can give them to me over the phone.
You
A
know,
lot of people do.
we've become a society of, I don't have time, I don't want to get stuck on the phone, I don't want to talk to this person, I'll shoot them a quick email. We got to get back to that personal communication, because the emails and what I'm going to show you, would you guys agree that after 30 years I'm old in this business, right? I sat up and listened and watched this email and I thought it was outstanding. And that's something for me to think back. So that's what I'm leading into, is this thing coming good. But yes, we will do that if you'd like us to. Don't keep their sensitive information around, you don't have to. Okay? We're more than happy to help you with that. What is, here's another trick one, GDPR. Here, so I don't read it wrong and miss out the asset this time.
General Data Protection Regulation.
And
Am I
it-
supposed to give them the answer?
Yes. Well, yes, I already gave them the initials. And when did it go into effect?
May 2018.
Wow. That has to do with people's private information and what you do with it, how long you keep it, and what the requirements are. I'm not going to go into the details, just know, don't keep it around.
What was the
Don't let
last letter on that?
GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. I just learned about it. Just saying. These are some of the things that the title company, which is us, do. We have to take classes every year, so many hours, I think it's 12 hours. I've taken them so many times I've been with this company and taken the same classes over. We have to take like clean desk policy, don't look in my office, but we make sure that we don't leave sensitive information out. We do not keep files anymore after they're closed. We shred them. They're already, keep them in something called SmartView. So if somebody says, I want a copy of my closing statement, we go to SmartView, pull it up, it goes out encrypted. Okay? But they have to prove to us that they're who they say they are. We don't just send it to anybody. Okay? They have to be a party to the transaction, have a reason that they need that document.
So if you had someone call up, I know we're talking about this, and they asked you to have a wire change to go to another bank, what would you do?
Oh my, yes, we are going to talk about that. The answer's no.
Do you want to
Actually,
say what my answer is?
You tell them what your answer is, because she's even
My answer is no. If you say you want to check at the closing table, and
Hell
later
no.
I think I hear from you that you want to wire, that's a huge red flag for
Or
me.
different? No.
Oh no.
A different account,
You better come in in blood.
I would say if I signed you before, you can come back in, because that could be anybody on the phone, that could be anybody in your email, and that's scary.
So we shred files, we use secure electronic storage of information. We always verify who our clients are before we send out the information. Phone calls, not emails. Verify, verify, verify with phone calls. Now, the reason it's so important, the information sheet that we send out to the clients at the very beginning, is because those are the phone numbers that we will use when we have a suspicion that something is wrong down the road. It may be we have a prior file that we go back in, we may look them up on Facebook, we may find wherever we can find to prove that this person is who they are, or disprove that they are not their own person. So we verify by phone calls. Our accounting department, if they don't like the answers we're giving them, they'll say, not good enough, we want to talk to this person. And we had them do that, last month?
Yep.
We use, like I said, the encrypted secure means of communication. We are trained. We have an experienced staff. Janine caught one in December. Ashley did another one.
Janine had an email fraud
She had an email
to
fraud.
change the account number. 10 minutes after they left her office.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the person was watching their emails, knew when they were going to sign and when they were going to be done, and emailed right after they had left. I mean, how scary is that for them to be
Let's go
hacking their
ahead
email and
and,
watching it?
If you guys don't mind, we'll go ahead and start this, because it's an hour. I don't think you'll be sorry about it. Right here?
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Scott McKee. Welcome to Fidelity National Title Group's Cyber Fraud and Wire Fraud webinar, Know the Signs. As you're all aware, cyber and wire fraud is a constant threat to your business. Every day we hear of new tactics cyber criminals are trying to implement on all parties to the real estate transaction. Today we'll update you with the latest schemes so you'll be better prepared to protect your operation. Okay, on to today's speaker. We're happy to have Krista Christensen give today's presentation. Krista is part of Fidelity's legal team where she is our risk manager for cyber and wire strategy. She's been with Fidelity's legal department for over 9 years with roles in claims and risk management. Now here's a fun fact about Krista. She won law school and sang the national anthem for President Bush. That would be number 43. Welcome, Krista.
Thank you very much, Scott. Good morning, everyone. Bear with me, it's really early here. I'm on the West Coast, so I woke up earlier than I would have liked to go ahead and talk with you about this because, as Scott mentioned earlier, this is a serious epidemic in our industry at this time, and the way that the fraudsters are interjecting themselves in these transactions, it makes it very clear that we all need to understand how it's happening, how this fraud scheme is happening, so that we can help protect the ultimate victims of these crimes, which is the buyers and sellers in our transactions. So that being said, what is business email compromise? That is how the fraudsters are getting in. Quite honestly, it's just sophisticated fraud scheme targeting businesses who rarely perform wire transfer payments. And in a nutshell, that's us, right? Every single day we are wiring out several thousand, hundreds of thousands of dollars and receiving the same. Anyone involved in a real estate transaction can be spoofed or can be the ultimate victim. At any time, any of your email accounts can be spoofed, which I like to call spoofed emails, kind of like imitation handbags. They look really close to the real thing, but they look a little off. And unfortunately, in this day and age, the reason why spoofed emails are so successful is, as a society, we have gotten used to not really reading what we receive. And it is even more that case in a real estate transaction when you are expecting a communication from a particular party at a particular time with a particular document attached to it. You're like, yes, I was waiting for this, now I can move on to my next step. And many of the time, we're not looking at exactly who sent us the communication we're looking at. We're just looking to make sure it has the document that we need and not looking at any of the red flags that are available. So at any time, what's happening to these buyers in particular is they'll get an email that looks like it comes from one of you all. It looks like it comes from their real estate agent. Or what we're seeing a lot more is it looks like it's coming from their lender or their mortgage broker. And unless we can really educate our buyers and get them to understand what is expected to them and how our wire instructions are going to be provided, and that no matter what, we do not tend to change banking information mid-transaction, the buyers are just going to assume that they are talking with a known professional, someone that they should rely on, and even if it seems weird to us, they're going to go ahead and wire the funds to that fraudulent wire instruction, and that's what we're trying to combat. It's also called account hijacking, because basically what happens in one of these scenarios, there you go, oh sorry, is a fraudster gains access to someone's email account and they have complete control over it. They can look at contacts, So any of your contacts that you have, they can then try and do various phishing schemes to gain access to their email. They can go ahead and send them an email, looks like it came from your account, or maybe it did come from your account, with a document that's embedded with malware so that it can gain access to their computer through malware. They're doing a lot of nefarious things to try and gain access into these transactions. So that being said, how is this happening? You know, how does one email account become compromised? There's a variety of ways of doing it, but really quick, our first poll question here. Have any of you ever been a victim of a data breach?
Twice last month.
Go ahead and cast your votes, and let's see what the responses are. So we'll give you a few minutes, a few seconds here to cast your votes. Wow, everybody's taking off. Pretty split. Numbers are looking pretty even. Keep on casting those votes.
Yeah, it was a live one.
All right, let me go ahead and close the poll and show you the answers.
Alright. Yes and no. It is kind of split 50-50 there. My guess is those of you who answered no, you guys have been a victim of a breach. You just don't know it yet. From Target, from Equifax, from Facebook, from a variety of other entities that have some of your information. Something of yours is now in hands that you did not willingly give them to. Now, it could just be that password that you like to reuse over and over and over. Like, let's say, for your email address, your bank account, any of that. So that is why I'm encouraging all of you to, just because you don't think it's happened to you, doesn't mean it hasn't. And you need to be vigilant with what you can control, which is make sure you're regularly changing passwords. Don't just rely on a system reminder that, oh, your company may have a requirement that every 90 days you have to change your password. No, it's okay for you to change it more frequently than that. Your personal email accounts, make sure you change them on a regular basis. Make sure we don't repeat passwords. Make sure that your malware is up to date. Make sure that all of your antivirus is up to date. It is that critical in this day and age because of the ease that these fraudsters can gain access and information on you. So now, in a real estate transaction, how does it happen? Okay, this diagram, it may be a little bit difficult for you to see, it's a little busy, but this was actually provided in a liaison information report from the FBI. This does a very good job of explaining what we're seeing in the real estate world and how these fraudsters are happening. Research has shown that these fraudsters are going to Zillow, Flipkey, Realtor.com, all of those websites in which properties are marketed, and they are targeting realtors or other parties that market these properties. Okay? Because think about it, as soon as any information, a property is uploaded onto the MLS or it's updated status from pending to active, however it goes, an IDX feed is sent from MLX to all of those other websites, and it's instantaneously updated. What additional information is on those websites? The listing agent, their contact number, their email address, as well as any mortgage broker that they maybe market with on a regular basis. And from there, what the fraudsters do is do spear phishing or other social engineering techniques to gain access to that computer. Now, how will they do that? Well, they may go ahead and go to that realtor's Facebook page, which is open for everyone to see because that's one of the ways they market themselves. Well, what they also want to do, because they want to make themselves personable, is they went ahead and list all the organizations that they're affiliated with. So then the fraudster may go ahead and send an email making it look like they're with the Florida Realtor Association. And send an email with a link. Or send an email with a document attached. And that document may have malware embedded with it. Or that link may then pop up into another window and say, oh, here you go, enter in your credentials. And as is wont, the password that they entered in for Florida Realty Association is probably the same password that they use for their email address. And that simply, the fraudsters gain access to that email account. And then once they gain access to that email account, they sit in a corner like a spider and just gain information. Not only about that transaction, but any other transaction that that party is part of. So let's say they're the listing agent on this transaction, but they're the buyer's agent on 6 other transactions. They just sit and gather information, who the title agent is, who the seller is, who the buyer is, who the other agent is, who the lender is. And as soon as we start providing information, as soon as we start going down that road of the transaction, they know when to interject themselves. They have researched our business and understand how it works. Bottom line is we use straightforward known processes between known participants. Right? So as soon as you guys start asking for the CD, as soon as that's around, they know that closing is around the corner, even if you haven't said closing is at 2 tomorrow. Okay? It also doesn't help, along with the whole marketing scheme, is that realtors tend to go ahead and tag in their buyers or their participants in the transaction that are their clients and say, final walkthrough today, closing set for Friday at 2. So the fraudster now knows the exact time of when the closing is to either try to intercept the buyer's funds or to fool one of you all and try and get the seller's funds, because they know when to expect those funds to be dispersed. Okay? Then the bottom line, and what the scary thing is once that wire transfer occurs, I'm sorry, I shouldn't push buttons. Once that wire transfer occurs, about 8-9 months ago, you had about a 24 to 48 hour window before those funds would leave that domestic mule account. And that's typically what's happening in these transactions is the funds are not immediately going overseas. They are not immediately being transferred internationally. They tend to start off in a domestic mule account as well. Sometimes the mule account, the owners are complicit in the fraud, and sometimes they aren't. Sometimes these people are unknowingly have their information regarding their bank accounts stolen from somewhere else. Maybe they were compromised themselves, because remember, as soon as your email gets compromised, you haven't probably cleaned out your cache of your website, or you have emails in there that show who your lender is. So they go ahead and go to your bank while you're sleeping and hit forgot password. And where does that password reset go? It goes to the email box that they have access to. So while you're sleeping, they can just change your login information and gain access to your bank account through the internet. So that's what's happening with some of these mules, and the mules don't even know that the fraudster has access to their account. They're just using it as a filter. And now they are getting so good that even 24 hours sometimes is too long before at least a large majority of those funds are removed and sent internationally. And once it gets sent internationally, it is extremely possible to get any of those funds back. I have yet to hear of anyone who actually has received any funds back once they have left that mule account. So, what do they do, and how do the fraudsters communicate once there is a compromise? They'll do one or two things. They can intercept and send emails directly from the compromised email box. We have seen that. Now, what's the way that they can do that? Think of how easy it is to set up a rule on your email account. Okay? So they can go ahead and set up a rule, and so that any email from Krista.Christensen@fnx.com is going to they're going to set up a rule that it bypasses the inbox altogether and either goes into an archive folder on your site or automatically gets forwarded to a different email account and then gets deleted, so that the account holder does not know that that email ever occurred. And then the fraudster would communicate directly with me, with the account holder not knowing that it's occurring. Okay? We have seen that. We have seen instances where real estate agents have talked to, the escrow officer or the title officer and said, hey, I'm not getting into your emails, and they're like, well, I sent it to you. Then finally they search through their deletes, and they see all these emails that purportedly was sent to them, but never hit their inbox. I've also seen a real estate agent say, yeah, all your emails are going to my archive folder. I don't know why. Well, there's a very simple explanation. Someone set up a rule to make it do that. So remind your real estate, your client, to regularly look and make sure that there's nothing set up on their account that they did not set up themselves. Now, we all know that real estate agents, they tend to operate out of multiple email addresses because, you know, they came up with a new one for a variety of reasons, and then they forward all their other 4 email accounts that they have to that new current one. Encourage them to filter that down. To try you can only use one. There's nothing bad happening on any of those accounts.
What you're saying is the more accounts you have out there, the more likely you are to get
in real estate transactions is spoofed emails. Now, I mentioned that earlier, and what spoofed emails are emails that look very similar to the email accounts that are correct, but they just have slight alterations. Although there are some spoofed emails where all they spoof is just make it look like it's the contact name, and the actual email address being used is something completely different, similar to the example that I have up here. So this is an example of one of our employees. It says that it is the employee email. However, the email address that's actually used is office email ends at Comcast.net. And that is obviously not any business email address that we use as a company. The buyer might not know that. They won't recognize it. We need to make sure that they understand, hey, we're only going to send emails from them. So it's a good idea to pick up the phone and call the buyer at the beginning of the transaction and not only tell them about wire fraud, but remind them, look, our emails are always going to come from this domain. If you tell them about it, it'll be something that they look at, right? They'll think about it then. Whereas if you're silent about it, it won't even cross their mind. Unless they have, a strong IT background or know what they're looking for, it will not even cross their mind. They'll see your name come across, especially considering the fact that they're probably looking at on their phone, and they will not think twice about it. So I want to remind everyone that most people do use their phone to at least communicate back and forth through email this day and age, especially real estate agents. So if you are not aware of this, or if you want to let your clients know this, just remember that when you look at your email address on your phone, when you're into the email, there's that blue name that shows up, right? That contact, and it has like a little greater than sign right after it, a little arrow. If you click on that just once, just tap it, a new window will pop up, and it'll show you the email address that it's coming from. So that's one way that they can make sure that they're really communicating with who they say they're communicating with. Because the email itself will look legitimate. It may have a reply to section added to the header. That's not normal, right? So remind people of that. That's what it's trying to do, is force the email to a particular inbox. They'll go ahead and copy signature lines. They'll change phone numbers, which is why we need to stress. Do not use phone numbers from email. Use a known trusted number that you can verify. Okay. They'll even be kind enough to include the fraud notice in their email because they want you to know that they're stealing your money.
Wow.
See, I'm not patient. And I'm passing through things, sorry. But now what we're seeing is a more sophisticated form of spoofing. So what you'll see is, you'll see the contact person's name, and right next to it, it'll say the correct email address for that person.
This is scary.
There is no way for you to tell, unless you do a heading review, that email is not coming from that particular person. In this example, it looked like the email came from one of our employees at the domain ltic.com. Okay, it was sent to the real buyer and the real lender. Okay, had, you know, the Lawyer's Tire logo, it had everything else, and you could tell from the body of the language that this communication had been going back and forth between the buyer and the fraudster. And the buyer almost did lose their funds to this. They'll have all the information, it'll look legitimate, but it's not until the receiving party hits reply that you see what the spoofed domain is. And the domain, instead of being LTIC, is LTI-C.com. So while we, as an industry, we've gotten better at looking at the from email addresses that we see, how many of us really look at the email address once we hit reply? Most of us don't. So unfortunately, that's something else we have to look for and remind our customers that they need to look for as well. This fraud has been in all 50 states, 131 countries, and more than 40,000 people have lost over $5 billion. They anticipate that number by 2021 being $21 billion. Okay. We just revealed in 2017 that there were losses due to business email compromise of over $675 million in actual losses. Us in the real estate world are the most often targeted. It makes sense, as I said earlier, we're closing transactions every single day, right? Nearly $1 billion was targeted from real estate transactions alone in 2017. So targeted does not mean actually diverted. It just means that's how many people, that's how much money fraudsters were trying to go after in 2017. I want to remind everyone, one of the reasons why this fraud is so prevalent and growing so much is the ease of which it can happen. I mean, the average successful bank robbery is about $3,800. That's a lot of work to go through to get $3,800. The average successful wire diversion is over $129,000. And they don't even have to wear pants. They just sit on their couch and have a grand time. That is what we're trying to combat here. So, but there's also additional costs associated with it. Hey, whenever one of these matters occurs in one of your transactions, there's investigation costs. You need to verify that you are not source of compromise. You need to go through whatever cyber protocol you have to make sure that it's not happening, right? Then you may have your own legal department that looks into things, because bottom line is wire fraud is a legal issue. You can be sure that if there is a successful diversion of funds, litigation will be forthcoming. The litigations cost themselves. Depending on the jurisdiction and depending on the amount at issue, these could take years. Right? And the buyers are selling parties, are suing parties, anyone involved. They aren't caring who was actually the source of compromise, because 9 times out of 10, you do not know who the source of compromise is without a detailed review of everyone's email account that's involved.
So we're all getting sued. Everybody know that?
The buyer will sue the title agent. They'll sue the real estate agent. They'll sue the lender. All right? In all hopes that they can recover some of their funds. But the biggest one is really brand and reputation erosion and customer churn. Because I can tell you now that when a customer loses $150,000 from one of these diversions, they're not talking about what a great experience they had with you. And they are going to every single news outlet that they can to talk about it. And despite your efforts and despite what you did to try and protect them, you are going to be painted in a bad light. That is just unfortunately the way that it's being treated. I mean, you guys have all heard this before. It's always escrow's fault. It's always title's fault. That holds true in this scenario as well. The good news about this fraud is there are ways to recognize it. We just all need to slow down and take the time to see the red flags that are there. So bottom line, by this time, anytime someone emails someone with last minute changes to wiring information, that should be a big red flag. You don't have to wait until you get the banking information in question. As soon as you get that communication saying, hey, my sellers want to use an investment account for their proceeds, want to do a trading account. You pick up the phone using a no trusted number and you call the person who reportedly sent you that email. Research has shown that the fraudsters are more successful after they get an initial response to that email. Because they start lulling you in, and they do what I tend to call spoof stacking. That's not a technical term by any means, but they will have a spoofed email for every single party that's involved with the transaction, except for the intended victim. And what they'll do is they'll do an email string and communicate between all those other parties that don't really have anything to do with the buyer or the intended victim until they're getting ready to strike. So they'll go ahead and email back and forth, and then all of a sudden, hey, can you send the updated wire instructions? And then they'll send it, and then someone will then at that point say, okay, victim, okay, buyer, here's the new instructions that you want to see. And the buyer falls for it because they have this entire communication string that goes along with it. And they do not think that the fraudsters would go through that much effort to try and defraud them. Okay, so by this time, and bottom line is, let's be honest, not many of us have that many bank accounts that we can deposit money in. And the likelihood, just like the likelihood of us changing our wire instructions mid-transaction, is extremely low. Time of day. End of the week, or end of the business day, or end of the month. Okay, that is when the fraudsters are going to go hard and heavy. Okay, for the end of the week, they want to get that wire out before cutoff on Friday. The reason why is they want that weekend, and if it's with a holiday weekend, it's a 3-day weekend, to remove those funds from the bank account before anyone knows it's gone. Because most people, if the funds do not hit the account by Friday evening, they aren't too worried about it because wires get delayed all the time, right? It's not until they look on Monday or Tuesday that everyone starts getting worried. And bottom line is, by that time, it is too late. Because while the wires departments were closed over the weekend, those fraudsters were still able to remove the funds from that account over that period of time. Okay? Outside of normal business hours. This is another way that heading information provides us so much information if we look. Because most of these fraudsters are not local. They are not going to be within your time zone. So pay attention. If you got an email and then you responded and the response back was before you ever sent your response, you know there's a problem. It's because someone's in a different time zone, and it's probably not the buyer's agent who lives, who works 2 miles down the road. If an email purportedly is sent to you at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's probably not someone in your transaction. Unless they're a severe insomniac, it's probably not them. So if you look at that and you see that you received an email from your selling agent at 3 o'clock in the morning, I encourage you to pick up the phone using a no trusted number and call and saying, hey, I noticed you emailed me at 3 in the morning. You doing all right? What's going on? It's a touch point for you all, but then you can maybe get in front of a fraud attempt before it gets any further. Emails from the same sender with grammatical changes. And by now, I think we're all accustomed and attuned to that run-on paragraph that's about, 10 inches long that only has one punctuation mark and the only thing capitalized is "and." Right? But we also need to be aware of the inverse. Because what these fraudsters are doing is they're going into chat rooms and they are coordinating, cutting and pasting. They're working with dialect coaches. They're using communications from other professionals, from other transactions, and interjecting them into yours. So if you have someone who maybe your customer English is not their first language, or you have a real estate agent who isn't necessarily known for their grammatical prowess on email communication, and all of a sudden they are writing in full sentences, that's also a red flag. That's also a good time that, hey, I need to pick up the phone. And this is another reason why we need to slow down and really read what's in front of us. Don't assume we know what it says, because we have to remember that there are clues that could maybe stop this fraud from being successful within that body. Don't just skim it and see if there's a question mark that would make you slow down really quick and read it a little more closely so that you can respond. I do the same thing, and I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'm very proud of myself when I got to your signature line. Right? We all just need to remember to slow down. Someone took the time to write it, let's take the time to read it. What's really hitting the buyers is requests for secrecy or pressure to take action quickly. Okay, what will happen is the buyer will get an email early in the week. Maybe the closing is scheduled for Friday of that week, or perhaps closing isn't for another 2 weeks, and we don't even have loan documents or anything finalized yet. But they'll get an email, purportedly from one of you all involved in the transaction, saying that you guys need to wire immediately, and the original wire instructions that you provided, assuming that you had, need to be changed because your account is being audited. You're over your daily limit of deposits. That's one of my favorites. You all deposited a fraudulent check. That account is currently locked down. And they need to do it immediately so that their closing is not delayed. The buyer doesn't think anything. It's not weird to them, most of them at least, that you would ask for the money that far in advance. They're thinking, hey, I'm going to have to send the money to them anyway. They might as well just send it now. Especially now the fraudsters are going ahead and sending an email saying, if you send me the funds now, we'll give you a 50% discount on your escrow rate. Now, these buyers don't know that we can't do that, and that you would never send that. They're thinking, cha-ching, I'm saving money. And then the problem with that is that it's silent. No one knows that those funds have been sent until the buyer comes into closing. And you all say, hey, where are your closing funds? Oh, what are you talking about? I wired them last week or earlier this week. And it's not at that point that you found out that they wired funds to an improper bank account. And by that time, it's too late. Okay? Sudden changes in business practices. If all of a sudden you have a client that you have always been, dealing with, let's say you use one particular email address and they want you to use a different email address now. You get an email that says, hey, stop using this business email and use this Gmail account.
You guys standing away? Do you want to watch the rest of it or not?
Don't just take the word of the email. Pick up the phone and call them. If you have a client who says, never call me again, I'm only communicating via email. Well, you might make them a little mad because the first thing you should do is pick up the phone, use the no trusted number, and call them.
Ash, you had one of those,
First, you need
didn't
to find out if
you?
it's
Don't
really
call me.
legitimate that they really are trying to move that way. And second, if they are, then you need to strongly discourage them from doing that. Remind them of the risks that are associated with it. Remind them of the fact that email cannot be relied upon solely as a communication method.
Should we pause for questions?
Yeah, you guys want to
We had
wait
a
and
situation
pause?
where
Ask some of these questions because
there
before we
was
forget them.
a brokerage firm that we did business with for years. Always the same bank account. Always the same information. We got an email that came directly from them saying instead of this US-based bank.
Okay. Stand up, whatever you need to do, because I can't sit that long either. And if you wanna, I'm gonna send this to Bob, if you wanna watch the rest of it, we can, but did it make you think?
Yes.
Scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is. Before you ask a question, I wanna really read something to you, because when I found out, I just went, oh my God. In February, I got notice of how much Fidelity had lost. And from September, for a 6-month period, there was $19,168,023 worth of attempted diverted funds. Would you like to guess how much was recovered?
Count that we've always used.
Sorry, they get in the way.
None of it?
None.
Zero.
$4,666,000 was diverted. Now, from February to July, so you got February, so March, April, May, June, July. What do you think we have now in total diverted money?
0.
It was 19 million. What do you think we're at now?
32
32 what?
million.
Okay, what do you guys think? Anybody else?
Sounds good.
32,936,991. Did you peek?
Yeah.
That's
How
just
much?
this year.
That's
So
just this
far.
year.
That's why she had a help.
How much do you
Has
think has
been
been
diverted or
recovered?
attempted diversion?
How much is
These
it?
are attempted diversions.
Attempted.
8
How
million?
much do you think we've recovered of that 32 million?
10.
Anybody else?
11.
Only 8,559,000.
That number 19 or 32 was
That sucks.
actual money that was stolen,
Gone.
not
And
just
we've only
attempted.
recovered the 9.
32 million gone and only recovered 9.
So,
They just like she
Fidelity,
said,
yeah, it's gone.
it goes into
Your
that pool
customers
account.
leave it.
And
Oh,
then
and-
international, and it's
oh my
spread
God.
so far over multiple more accounts that you can't get it back.
so you're not responsible for that, though?
Nobody's responsible. Well, like she said,
Well,
so
I have a
litigation
question.
that happens.
It's the litigation. We
All right, I have a
stopped it
question.
after 30. I'm gonna send it to you and you can send it out. Yeah.
I have a question.
So let me read something to you from National Association of Realtors. July 25th, Kansas Federal Court upholds jury verdict that determines a real estate licensee was 85% responsible for the buyer's losses, which occurred when the buyer transferred purchase money to a fake account after the licensee allegedly forwarded an email containing fake wiring instructions to the buyer.
That sucks.
Kansas City had nothing to do with it.
$196,622 loss.
I have a question, and why is it that now the buyers, everybody has to wire the money? You know, like when you go to the title company, they say, you're not accepting a check, we're not accepting
Check
this, you
fraud.
gotta wire.
Commercial checks were easy.
Checks are easier to make fraudulent
What
than
about
wire
cashier's
action.
checks?
Cashier's checks can be reproduced. They can be forged. They can have stock pays on. They're not good funds. We can accept them, but we take 10 days to clear them, so your sellers would take 10 days, your commissions would take 10 days. It's awful, you guys.
About 5 years ago, I was involved in a large transaction with a gentleman from England that secured a local attorney that I know that deals in real estate, deposited $300,000 worth in an escrow account, and everything was fraudulent. And that was with a cashier's check from supposedly a ERA or IRA or whatever company.
Oh my God.
So now, is there a standard time, Ashley, when the buyer should expect the wire information from you? So we'll, we could share with them, hey, if you get something 2 weeks in advance,
Right.
question it.
Yes, I will only send wiring instructions on request most of the time. With lenders, it's different. Sometimes lenders will give my wiring instructions out, and I don't like when they do that, but sometimes they will. So when the CD is finalized, usually 2 to 3 days before the closing, they'll either get an email from the lender with my wiring instructions or an email from me. Mine only come encrypted, where you have to create an account and it has a password, or how I'm doing it now, because people are kind of going on their phones a lot more than a computer, is the password protected wiring instructions. And only I have the password, Janine has the password, Jan has the password. I have to only call our office from their known number that I have on file and get the password from me.
Got a question
Same with
back
the
here.
lender. I only send them to the lender
I have a
password.
comment. I have a buyer, and this other title company, because the seller chose them, she wanted to send me, carbon copy me, the wiring instructions. And I said, no, do not. Give it to me over the phone, because he
Right.
wasn't receiving it. I
Okay.
said, give it to me over the phone, and if he doesn't get it this time from you, I will give it to him, but do not send it to me.
Right, you can be CC'd, that's okay.
I didn't
Just
even
to
want
know-
that.
Yeah, but if I have a lot of realtors that ask me, hey, send me the wiring instructions, I'll send them to my buyer. That is the biggest
No, no.
problem, because they are not, it's not watched as they go through the line.
So what happened with that agent, what's the best way to avoid, like, us as agents not being the ones that are gonna be blamed?
Be aware of what your emails are saying.
So do we only let the title company send it and then we're not
Exactly.
responsible?
Yes, should
Going
never be
forward,
touching wiring
guys, if you're
instructions.
involved in the transaction, you're gonna be named in the suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it happens, you're gonna be named no matter what.
But I'm not forwarding anything.
Doesn't make any difference.
They're still gonna sue.
Really?
Yeah.
So even if the title company sucks and they're not protected, then I'm gonna get sued.
If the buyer's money doesn't end up at the title company, everybody's involved.
They're gonna want
It
us to
it
be
doesn't matter.
all of
But
that.
you know that you've done the right things in the order.
So I picked a
to
good
protect
title
yourself.
company then. I
And
need to
you
pick the
cover
right
your customer
title company.
first.
That's what I said.
Inform them first, exactly.
Exactly.
If you inform
Awareness.
them, you're covering, for what I do, is that here's the wire fraud document. You look at that, and then I explain why.
Right.
This is the steps that you're going to see
Educate
happen
them.
from a title company.
Perfect.
So if you're getting something from me that says, here's a wiring instructions,
Right.
don't open it, don't answer it. Call, any questions,
Call.
call me.
Yep.
If something comes through,
I do see.
call me.
Education.
Do not send any funds unless you call me and say, hey, I got this. Or you call the, you talk, because at least if I go to court,
You
I
know.
can say, we went through this and nothing in my computer sent you
You might,
anything.
you might get whacked for 10 or 15%.
Yes.
Are text messages more secure than emails, or should we be worried about our text messages too?
I would worry about that as well. There's like apps where it can show any number coming up. So even a 239 number is just an app showing that number coming up.
So we don't want to put anything in email, that closing time, or any of that.
Or a text message.
Pick up the phone, you guys.
I just recently got a Facebook message from somebody that I know, and it had their picture on it, and it's not them. When I opened it, and it said that it was hacked, does that mean they went into my account, or they?
No, they're just
Their account, right?
in their account messaging you, trying to get you to click on a link
Be
or
aware of it.
something.
Don't,
Yeah.
don't
There's something I want to talk to.
So, quick question, so with this wire fraud, is it mostly just with the buyers sending the money, or are the
Seller
seller's
too.
proceeds
Okay.
affected as well?
That too.
Here's what I didn't tell you guys, and it did a breakdown for me. Seller side, 192 transactions, 16 were successful. Let's see.
192 attempts, 16 successful.
Buyer side, 525 attempts, 103 successful. Borrowers for refi, so you don't really that. Lender funding, 18, 3 were successful. Commissions, 9, 2 were successful for $75,000. You want your commissions taken?
Oh my God,
Hello?
this is a
Checks.
dangerous business.
Checks for commission.
I want to check.
So how do we know if we've been hacked, like especially in Facebook or one of those things?
Yeah, how do we know? What do you do if somebody did that to me? How
She
do I know?
said, change your passwords regularly, just be
Change it.
aware. Don't have 5, 6 different emails, you know, 1 or 2.
And let me talk real quick, since we did not finish the video, and I know Bob, you're gonna send it out to him, maybe?
Well, how much is left?
30 minutes.
Well, actually, 45 minutes.
Oh,
There's 45 minutes left.
That's
of it.
fine.
You guys okay with the rest of it?
Yeah, I'm already overwhelmed
Overwhelmed.
with.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, my very first transaction, wire fraud happened. I had the buyer, the seller was the one who got it.
What I just wanted to remind you is we're very good about putting our stuff out there about doing a closing, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith's closing's coming up. They suggest that you do that after it happens. It doesn't have to happen on Facebook the day it happens or the day before it happens.
Right. I wouldn't
Do it after it happens, because then your people cannot get hacked.
I'm not
So I have a
gonna
question.
email them anymore.
With the situation of what happened with mine, like I said, the buyer left, or the seller left. They was giving them the instructions, 15 minutes after we left, this hacker or whatever calls into the title company and said, I don't want it to be sent here, I want it to be sent to this bank account. They did it. Are they then responsible?
Title company? That's up for
They're still
litigation,
gonna-
I guess.
they're still gonna get sued
Yeah,
probably.
anybody will get sued and, yeah, that'll be illegal.
So Bob, if you have any little bit, we'll go ahead.
What about Liberty? How
They've
many,
had
how about
questions
Liberty
for us.
Title? How many lawsuits, how many transactions?
We've stopped them.
Zero.
No, I will tell you.
Not by me
zero.
or Janine, anyway.
No, yeah, the only
Right.
one that we have is one where, an agent took a listing, never met the seller. This was 15 days after we purchased the company in March.
That
We
was-
never,
that was before me.
never even knew him. Did not meet the seller, the agent did not meet the seller. The seller had identification, used his own notary. The title person that was there closed it, $360,000. Oh. The owner came in to the county and wanted to know why he wasn't getting his tax documents. And it's
Because it had been sold.
It had been sold.
Oh.
Underneath him. Know who your people are. Now, why do we require that you use our notaries? We're insuring the title.
Right.
Why would we use your notary? Are
It
they
can
gonna-
happen here too.
Are you gonna
It
insure
can
it?
happen
Yeah, it
here.
happens right here in the
Yep.
US too.
So we have a company that's vetted and background checked by Fidelity called BankServe. There's another one too, Premier Notary.
The one Janine uses.
Yes, there's 2 companies. They're all the notaries are background checked and vetted. So they are who they say they are. They will check IDs. They know how to catch people with fake IDs.
And we can disperse on them too.
And we can, right,
Same day disperse.
Same
They
day
email that
disperse.
for us. So if they're
They
out
give
of
us
state,
scan
we
back.
can still disperse the money.
You know, what if I have a seller up in Ohio, you know, they own down here, they're
They're
selling.
nationwide.
It's
We have
nationwide.
them all
Oh.
over the
So I go on their website and I type in the address for signing, I type in the date and time, and I tell the seller it's $125, but I give the notary all the documents, the seller doesn't have to touch them, they print them out, I give them a return label, they go straight to
Oh.
their home and sign at their home with them, and
Oh,
then they
wow.
take the documents and send them to me. So, and if they don't want somebody, they're not comfortable, someone coming to their house, they will meet at a Starbucks, a library.
But we do get a lot of pushback, especially on.
There's
you
a
know,
charge,
yeah.
but I feel like it's really convenient and it's really
It's worth
protected.
it.
people.
Yeah. They don't have to
So-
fly
Cause
down
I can't
here.
do the signing myself, I have to know that someone I know.
It's cheaper than a plane ticket.
Well, we're insuring it.
Right.
So we have to ensure that the closing is done correctly, and the parties are who they say they are.
So what if the buyer is wanting to use their bank?
No.
No.
But is the bank gonna insure it? They're not gonna write title. Insurance.
Right.
Now, if the lender for the buyer says they can sign at their lender, at that bank, then yes.
Most of them say no.
But most of them, branches are refusing, bank branches are refusing to do deeds anymore. They require 2
I've had a
witnesses.
couple mailaways where the title sent docs to the other party's bank, they sat with a closer or a bank person, and then it was notarized there, put back in the envelope and sent back.
Fidelity will not allow.
We won't allow,
Okay.
we won't allow any random notary to sign a deed.
Let's get back on international real quick. For those of you that are working on your certification, anybody know about the Global Council? Okay. Come Friday, we are having a breakfast. I would encourage you to go meet others that do business with international clients. It's a good way to get some education for that too, and to meet up and see who else is doing this in the industry. It's free to you all, and it's just gonna be over at the Education Center.
This Friday?
Yes, contrary to me being over there last Friday at the one
She
we got.
was.
Where's it at? The Cape Coral Realtor Association?
Yeah, it's at 8:30. In fact, our international tax consultant will be there, and we'll probably talk a little bit about, I've got a few of these, if anybody wants it, we can make some more copies.
Oh, so we don't need to go to that?
BEC stand
Oh,
for?
I thought you said it was.
What does BEC stand for?
Oh.
Which one?
BEC. Okay, got it.
Thank you for that.
Business email compromise. Yes. We're gonna pass these out. And as you have more questions, if you want more information, you know, if you want to take the class just on this.
You'd like one? You're welcome.
All right, guys. So for the certification class, you're gonna have to see the rest of this video. I guarantee you there will be questions
Oh,
on the back half of this.
really?
Can you send it to us?
Well, I'll send you the link that you can watch it. It's on YouTube. And we'll have the slide deck that we'll get also.
Can we stay and watch it now?
Yep.
If you wanna stay and watch it now, I'll continue. Yeah. What'd you say about
I got
the
it. Yeah, I think so. She had a little story she wanted to tell.
Who's that?
Well,
Angie?
I want to share a story about one of my clients came to see a house, and he likes a house in Palo Grande. So he went home, and I got an email 2 days later. I knew he was on vacation. He was going to go on vacation. I got an email saying, from my client, saying everything like it was his name, saying, Angie, I am on vacation. I had a problem. I lost my ID. I lost everything. I need your help. So at the beginning I say, these people have money, I knew that. But the first email I say, what kind of help do you need? He said, I need you to lend me some money. I don't think he said that. When he said that, I say, tell me where you met me, tell me where you're staying, tell me what we talk about. So because he stayed on a vacation rental, I knew everything. So once I say that, he keep emailing me. Once I say that, he stops. So I keep, I try to text. Next day, he said that they got his mail, they had his mail, and he was able to recoup. He didn't get
Quick, thank you.
Another time was a seller from Panama. He sent me say he wants to sell his property, and I asked for the ID, and I asked for everything. When I say the ID doesn't match, his name doesn't match here with the account, they stop. So you gotta be careful.
Good job.
Everything's
So you are an expert.
So you gotta be careful with those emails. Now I realize we
Wow.
be careful with those emails from the people that we know.
Yeah.
Just to make sure verify can be Angie.org, .net, anything.
Yeah.
Just change one.
All right, let's play the rest of this for those that want it. So we're done here.
Okay? If that wouldn't have been verbally verified, $425,000 would have been lost. And not only that, they wouldn't have known that their system was compromised because the email did come from their system. The review showed that the brokerage firm had been compromised and the email was sent directly from their system to our company requesting this change. It should never be too short. If something seems weird, if something seems off, trust your gut. There's no harm in picking up the phone and calling. I know we are closing transactions faster now than we ever have before, but if at any time in the transaction it makes sense to slow down and smell the roses, it's when you're dealing with someone else's money. So where do we see it in transactions? It started out on the seller side, right? First off, that's public knowledge, right? You can look up on any website, you know, county, quarter, anywhere, and find out who the registered owner of a property is. So as soon as they knew that it was up, you know, it was on the market, they knew who the seller was, they could go after the title agent or the settlement company, depending on your region, in attempt to divert the seller's proceeds. And most parties have came up with procedures on how to do this. If you do not have a set of procedures internally on how to deal with change of wire instructions, I encourage you to do so. Go ahead and make sure, you know, make it a practice. I'm not saying you have to do this one, but verbally verify through no trusted number all disbursement changes. Whether it be originally the seller wanted to check and now they want to wire, or whether it was originally wired to this account and now it's wiring to this account. Verbally verify it with them before wiring any funds. Now that's something we can control of. We can take control of. So most of the time, so that's starting to wean away. But that being said, I can tell you that it went on a downward slope the end of 2017, and we are now seeing an uptick in attempts to divert sellers' proceeds again. I think what they did was take a couple months off, see if we would, as the industry, become lax in verifying this information, and try again. Okay? But where they're really laying on right now is the buyer side. They are the hardest to protect and the most vulnerable. It is sometimes extremely difficult to get contact directly with the buyer. And that is what we need to do as an industry. We need to get the realtors on board to recognize, look, us talking to your clients with regards to our wire instructions and making sure they understand how it is going to go, when we would ask for the money, how it would happen. We are not trying to take you out of the equation. We are trying to limit the opportunities of the fraudster. We are trying to get a direct contact with the buyers so that they know what's going on. If you need a little ammunition to make that real estate agent compliant, tell them about the 65-year-old couple in Colorado who lost their life savings to this crime and has sued the title company, the real estate agent, and the lender. And the basis of the suit against the real estate agent and the title agent is that they are in this business, they knew this was an epidemic, and they did not do enough to protect their buyer. As it relates to the lender, it was that the lender did not respond fast enough once they got the recall due to fraud. These people are now living in one of their children's basements. They went from going to buy their dream home to being homeless. Remind these realtors that, look, buyers your clients are and can include you in litigation. And when they do, it's not just the end result that you have to worry about, it's also the defense costs leading up to it. And litigation can be very timely and very costly. We're also seeing lenders funds. You may start seeing fraudulent payoffs. We have gotten several of them where the title agent has requested payoff information, then all of a sudden what they get back is fraudulent, especially if it's a private beneficiary, or what's happened is they end up getting a change in banking information, and they end up wiring to the fraudulent bank because they did not slow down. It was a busy time. They needed to get it funded. They needed to get this. They needed to get that. They needed the payoff done. And no one picked up the phone and verbally verified. And it's also a little tricky because with the national lenders, you have to know who to call, when to call. You could be on hold for a while. Right? Also, realtor commissions. Now, that doesn't happen in the Midwest, which is where I'm from, because, let's be honest, the realtor commissions aren't necessarily high enough. But in your area, that may not be the case. Okay? We have had instances where someone pretending to be the realtor has submitted something, a change in wire instructions, in an attempt to divert their commission. To remind your real estate agents that, look, they're going after you too. Let's all work together to try to minimize this risk for everyone involved. So now, what are the steps that you can take to try and minimize this risk? Quite honestly, the best way to protect is education and awareness. You cannot stop this crime if you don't know how it's happening. It's very easy for someone to say, especially real estate agents, to say, look, it's not our issue, we don't deal with money, it's a settlement office issue. And unfortunately, that's just not true. Because 9 times out of 10, you all are not the ones that are working out from Starbucks, using a free Wi-Fi, using a Gmail account, without multi-factor authentication enabled, and opening up documents with other people's private information on them. 9 times out of 10, you all are not the one who doesn't have the capability to send encrypted or secure email. So we need to make sure that the real estate agents know and understand. I would encourage you all to talk with your real estate agent client, to set up a presentation with them, to let them know the risk that they are putting their clients to. Because bottom line is, what real estate agents have done to make themselves successful has put a big target on their back. Now we're not going to tell them, look, you can't market yourself. But there are ways that they can do things to help protect everyone. Like delayed marketing, right? There's nothing that says that it has to be insta marketing. So maybe when you took that picture and you tagged in that buyer with regards to a walkthrough, or the fact that they just signed a contract, because remember, buyer's information is not public, right? They have to have gained access to someone's email and looked at the contract, looked at some other communications to know who the potential buyer is, right? Well, don't make it easier by tagging the buyer while the transaction's still going on. There's nothing that says that you can't, that your marketing wouldn't be just as successful if you wait to post all of that after the transaction is already closed. No one needs to know, except for the people involved in the transaction, that's already happened and you're actually doing it something from the past. It still has the same effect. Okay, avoid sending sensitive or confidential information via email. This is a big one. We have gotten used to sending everything email. We forgot how email started. The purpose of email wasn't to run a large business off of it. It was to replace pen pal letters. And most of us who use email are not savvy enough with IT security to really protect ourselves when we're using it. Right? So we need to remember that the people's information that are being sent, it's not ours. It's our customers. For the real estate agents, it's their clients. You just need to remind everyone, look, if you do not have the capability or the ability to send this type of information in a secure manner over the internet, you shouldn't be doing it. I know that you've all gotten emails sometimes from lenders saying, oh, don't send that to me secure, send it to me in standard email. You should really question it at that point, and you should probably pick up the phone and call that lender and say, look, this is private information. We are obligated to make sure that this is sent in a secure manner. Figure out another way. If they say, all right, well then fax it to me. Make sure they don't have just e-fax. Because if so, then you just send it to their email account unsecured as well. Be careful what's posted on social media sites and websites. Okay? That's for all of you all. You know, we all like to tout what good employees we have, but maybe don't put exactly what their job duties are, so we don't make it easier for the fraudsters to pretend to be someone. Because the fraudsters are going to go to your websites, they're going to research what to do. Right? And out-of-office details. Hey, we're all allowed to go on vacation, and when we do, business practices dictate we put an out-of-office on. A lot of, escrow officers, a lot of the, title officers, they'll go ahead and put, even a little blurb on their email before they're out saying, I will be on vacation this time. I just want to mind all you all. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, because you should. That's the polite thing to do. But just remember that the fraudster is also seeing that. So the fraudster then knows when it's a great time to pretend to be that particular person. Because you pretty much told the world that for these 10 days, you are going to be in Cancun having a great time and not looking at your email. And so you would not know that someone is pretending to be you and emailing the parties that are involved in your transaction. And you also have to assume that despite your efforts to make it very clear that you're going to be gone, no one read that, because A, it's below your signature line, so you're lucky if they got to your signature line, they're not reading below it. Or B, they don't remember, because they can't remember any of that, the dates anyway. What I would suggest is on your out of office, maybe don't put the particular days that you're gone. So it's not as easy for the fraudster to know maybe you're only gone for a day. Maybe go ahead and announce to, pick up the phone, call the parties that you're involved in transactions with, say, hey, I want to remind you I'm going to be gone during this time. While I'm gone, Krista Christensen in my office is going to be taking over any communications that you have. I will not be sending any emails at that time. So then maybe if they got an email that looks like it came from you, the light bulb goes on. Right? And as it relates to social media sites, here's our second poll question. Do you guys complete those personal quizzes on Facebook or other social media sites?
Go ahead and launch that poll, and everybody go ahead and dive in. More data out there.
Good to hear.
Can't always do
No.
Come on, cash in your bill. You can go ahead and email us back next to and I'll show the results.
I probably already, you probably already.
Okay, most of you do not. Good. While those quizzes seem like they're really cute and fun, bottom line is you never know if your Facebook account is really as secure as you think it is. But two, those innocuous questions, they actually can help fraudsters figure out your personal security questions to other websites. So quite honestly, at this point, it is almost safe to say that the only secure way to answer any of those security questions, let's say on your bank, with your bank account, with whatever portal you're using for your, for Netflix, for any of that, the only really secure answer to do is a complete lie. Because the truth is most of our information can be found out doing a detailed Google search of yourself. Find out where you were born, and find out, your mother's maiden name, can find out where you went to school. Because even if you are very good about not putting that information, like your children's birthdays, your children's names, any of that on Facebook, the bottom line is your friends may not be that conscious of it, so they'll go ahead and tag you in something saying, hey, tell Nathan happy birthday, and it's on his birthday. And you never announced that yourselves, but now the fraudsters or someone that you did not want to know that information to now knows that your son's name is Nathan and that his birthday is on that particular day. So while it seems fun, while they seem cute, I encourage you to not participate in those types of activities because they can be used for very bad things. Okay. Additional suggestions for protection. Establish another communication channel outside of email. Make it a known trusted number. Think of using a password or a passphrase with your client. It should be determined early on in the transaction and outside of email communication. Now you may get the initial contact information via email, I understand that, but like 2 weeks after the transaction is open, you shouldn't be scrolling through your email to find out what Susie Byers' phone number is. And you should use your escrow file to get that number. Okay? And a password, it should not be something that can be found out by social media. Don't make, what's your favorite color. Don't make what's your favorite child. One, because we're not supposed to have favorites. But two, like I said earlier, it's probably on Facebook somewhere and they can know what that is. Okay? Because this way, if someone questions who you are, because these fraudsters are also they're calling your customers and pretending to be you. They're texting them. So make it clear how you're going to communicate with them. And if you come up with a password, that anytime they got a call purportedly from one of you all, say, all right, what's the password? You have one that you have to say to them, they have one that they have to say to you. That way everyone can confirm the identities of everyone before you start talking about the transaction. Okay? If you have an IT department, immediately report and delete unsolicited email. Do not open spam from emails or click on links. And if you do, notify management right away so that IT can look at it and make sure that there hasn't been any compromise. Okay, here's a big one. Stop using reply. Use forward as well. Yes, you have to type back in the contact information, but that way you're really sure that you're emailing who you intend to email. And you can also check and see if you've communicated with anyone with a similar email address, so you know if you talk to a fraudster through a spoof email account. Because it'll start pulling up as soon as you start typing the name in and the email address in. If you have web-based email accounts, make sure you invoke and enable two-factor authentication. Okay, for those of you who don't know what two-factor authentication, basically requires the password and a PIN code. The PIN code is typically sent to the mobile device attached to the email account. Okay, some of you use Outlook, maybe you have an MFA number that's tied to. Use complex passwords, okay? And don't duplicate them. Right, there's password managers on any smartphone. Look into some of them, see if they will work for you. Most of them, they'll generate passwords for you. You can just tell them what your system requirements are, and they'll do it so that you don't have to think about it. Then they'll store it. You don't have to remember them. Always verbally verify transfer requests. That's fine. Okay? And anytime you talk with the buyer, make sure you are stressing that. Every time you talk to the real estate agent, make sure that you are stressing that the buyer should not send any funds without calling you directly at a no trusted number. It's verifying the banking information. And when you verify the banking information, make sure that parties are not passive listeners. Make them tell you what bank account. Start the ABA number, make them finish. Same with the account number. Anything to keep them engaged in the communication. Okay? Carefully review emails, especially those with wire transfer information. If you see something weird, pick up the phone. It's amazing that something that was created back in 1876 can help us with this current fraud scheme if we just used it. We've gotten out of the habit of calling people. And what we need to remember is while this is business to us, it is extremely personal to them. And picking up the phone and calling the buyers and the sellers, it will help give that personal touch and make you guys feel like you're more than just a name behind an email account. And the likelihood that they will turn to you for their next transaction is much higher that way. Regularly purge emails. The fraudster will go through your old email and gather trends about you, your contacts, anything they can do to help legitimize their communication. All right, consider implementing a standard warning notice to your customers of the scam. Like these are some of our fraud alerts that we do. The one on the left is what we send to buyers at the very beginning of transactions. We send it directly and exclusively to them and say, look, here's our banking information. There's a place for them to acknowledge receipt of it, and we ask for them to send it back. I encourage you to also follow that up with a phone call, telling them, look, this is our bank, and saying verbally what your bank is, saying it'll never change. Because maybe if you've said it to them and they heard it in their ears, them receiving an email with another bank will make the light bulb go on. It won't always go on, but if it does 5 out of 10 times, that's better than 1 out of 10. And the document on our right is just a flyer that we provide to not only our real estate agents, but in our offices to say, here, look, this is happening. Here, write down the good numbers. for all your parties right here, so you never have to look through an email or pull up a web address to find out what people's numbers are. This is another one that we use for commercial transactions when it's not as easy to get direct contact with the buyer. This being said, we encourage you, anytime you can get direct contact with the buyer, do it. Okay? And if you can't get direct contact with the buyer, make sure whoever you do have direct contact with on the buyer side, they understand the importance of making sure that any wire instructions are verbally verified before any funds are returned or sent. So, business practices, protect your house. Make sure you have a cybersecurity protocol. Make sure you know you have an incident report should something happen in one of your transactions. Make sure you limit your opportunities. Anytime that you can streamline processes and make them standardized, you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping your repeat real estate agents as well, because they know what to expect. Talk about it often, and this isn't a movie. Silence is not golden. Make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on, how this fraud is happening, and the best way to stop it from happening. Okay? If someone is a victim of fraud in one of your transactions, the account holder should immediately contact their financial institution and request a recall due to fraud. It's very important they say due to fraud, otherwise the receiving bank will seek permission from the account holder before returning the new funds. Okay. Also, that sender should request their financial institution to reach out to the receiving bank and let them know. You all can reach out to us, to your agency contact, and we, through our fraud department, will also try to reach out to that receiving bank to request a freeze to the account in question through our banking contacts. You can do the same. The more people that can get in touch with them and let them know, the better it is for everyone involved. Time is of the essence, right? You need to have the sender contact the local police department and the local FBI office. They should also file a complaint with the Internet Crime Complaint Center, and actually they're getting so many of these matters now that they have now put out a subset for DEC. So now instead of just ic3.gov, I believe the email address is DEC-ic3.gov. You can go on the website and find it out. I'm doing that off the top of my head off of something that I just read. But that's how many. They received, the IC3 received almost 16,000 complaints on DEC last year. Okay, now bottom line is the person who's lost the funds, the person who's centered, they have to be the one that does this. You all don't have standing to do any of that because it's not your funds. It's not your, you didn't send the email, it's not in your account. Okay, I would let the victim know that they need to push on their bank a lot and the local police department, because the IC3 is pretty much just a, hey, this happened, and they report it, but they're not going to be doing anything. I would focus on the local police department to try and push the investigation forward. Also, you all, as soon as you get notice of it, you should inform all parties via known trusted number that electronic communications may have been compromised. Okay, because at this point, like I said, you do not know who was compromised without a review of everyone's email account that was known, that's involved in the transaction. So put everyone on notice, because it could have been just because it happened on the buyer side, doesn't mean the compromise didn't occur on the seller side or vice versa. Okay? And do not continue to communicate with the fraudster. I can't tell you how many times people have said, well, I'm just going to reel them in. I'm like, what? No, this isn't Quantico. That's not what your role is, right? Just stop talking to them. They'll go away, right? And not only that, but you don't want to sit there and say, oh, I know it's not really, you're not really Joe Seller. Well, then you don't know what they're going to do or how fast they're going to react to them. Okay? And then you recommend to all parties they review their email security, including changing passwords, reviewing email login history, conducting security reviews. Because obviously they're in someone's email account, and that also includes making sure that you do the same security review internally and verifying that you are not the source of compromise. So what I hope that you all understand after this is our motto for our wire safe group, which is what I'm the manager of, is inquire before you wire. We want everyone to make it abundantly clear to everyone involved that, look, you need to call us at a known trusted number before you ever wire any funds, and we will do the same. Too many times, the reason why this is successful is that we assume that the buyers know more information about how a real estate transaction occurs than they really do. Because the bottom line is this may be the first time that they're buying a home, or the last time they did it was over 7 years ago, and things have changed dramatically in that time. So we need to be clear and concise. I kind of equate it to treating them like they're kindergartners, and you're teaching them how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for the first time. That you make sure they know up front, step by step, what to expect. Because the fraudsters will do whatever they can to try and get those buyers to send their closing funds to an improper bank account. I would encourage you to get them your banking information as soon as possible. Make it secure. Make them know that it's not going to change. So at least that way you have something. They have something to bargain against if they get something different. Because if you say that you're only going to provide it through verbal verification, they must call you to get it. What's going to happen is that fraudster is going to pretend to be one of you in communication and say, oh, while I'm talking to you, I'll just go ahead and send you my wire instructions. Oh, and if you send them now, I'll give you a 25% discount on our fee.
Who wants that?
And before you know it, the money's gone and you didn't even know that it happened, and there was no reason for you to know because we don't even have the loan documents yet. And there'd be no reason for that buyer to send money. Okay? Well, I want to thank you all very much for attending this webinar today. I hope it was insightful for at least some of you.
I know it was long, you guys. I hope you found it good.
Yeah, that's great stuff.